What is up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today I want to talk about this budget that President Joe Biden released yesterday. So in this video, we're going to be breaking down what is included in this budget, what was not included, and most importantly, what all of this means for you. So let's get started. So yesterday, President Joe Biden and his administration announced and released the 2022 fiscal year budget proposal. Now, this is a proposal that shows how much money President Joe Biden wants the country to spend and where he wants this money to go. Like all of the proposals that we talk about on this channel, whether it be a spending bill, a budget proposal, a stimulus package, it's important to remember that this is not set in stone until it has been negotiated on, until it has been agreed upon, and until it has been voted on by Congress. And that what we are talking about today will probably look vastly different than it does in 6 months once it is implemented. The fact of the matter is, the power of the purse is held by the House, and until the House votes on the budget, nothing is set in stone. I predict that we will have a long summer of negotiations before we actually learn what is actually going to be the 2022 fiscal year budget. So with that, let's dig into the bill. Now, I would like to note that in this video, I'm going to be going over some of the basic spending categories and basic spending amounts. I'm not going to break down the proposal line by line because, quite honestly, that would make for a very boring video, and there's a lot that's included in the budget proposal that I think many of you would not be interested in. But I will include a list down in the description below, as well as some links that you can check out that will give you some more information on this budget proposal. That way, if you want to learn more, if you want to really dive into what is included, you can click on those links and learn and read on your own. So the budget proposal that President Joe Biden released was $6 trillion. That is a substantial amount of money. In fact, if it was to be passed, it would bring U.S. spending to its highest level since World War II. Now, nearly two-thirds of this bill, in fact, essentially two-thirds of this bill, make up the American Families Plan and the American Jobs Plan, which of course, to no surprise, is included in this budget proposal. Now, you guys know what the American Families Plan is, and you know what the American Jobs Plan is, so I'm not going to really dive in deep to this a whole lot. But the American Families Plan is the social infrastructure bill that was announced last month, and the American Jobs Plan is the traditional infrastructure bill that was announced in March. These two plans work together to provide a lot of different resources for families, for the job market, for the economy, and if it was to pass, then it would offer free community college, it would offer free universal preschool, it would really focus the U.S. economy on renewable and clean energy. It would work towards improving our roadways, our railways, our bridges, and more. Now, of course, the American Families Plan and the American Jobs Plan are not going to pass in their current form, so they are going to also look drastically different than they do today once they finally do pass. And so these two plans heavily impact this budget. They make up two-thirds of the budget, and because of that, just because of these two plans alone, the budget will look drastically different depending on how these bills and how these plans end up panning out. In addition to the American Families Plan and the American Jobs Plan, which of course are in this budget proposal, there is also a lot of funding going to a lot of different resources. First and foremost is $36.1 billion going to Title I schools, which are schools that serve low-income communities and low-income children. In addition to Title I schools, the bill also provides $2.6 billion to gun-related efforts, including gun violence and also gun licensing efforts as well. There's also $30.4 billion going to the efforts of housing vouchers. Now, for those of you who don't know what the housing voucher program is, this is a program that has been implemented by the government to help very low-income, disabled, and elderly individuals be able to afford affordable housing. Not only affordable, but also clean, safe, and adequate housing as well. Basically, how it works is that if you've qualified for the housing voucher program, you're able to actually go out and find housing that meets the criteria outlined within the housing program, and then you get a voucher to assist you in the process of paying for it. Because typically, like with government subsidized housing, it oftentimes isn't comparable to non-government subsidized housing. It oftentimes is lower quality and a less than ideal neighborhood with very low standards. And so this is a way for people who are in that low income bracket, in that elderly and that disabled bracket, to be able to go in and find good housing that's safe, that's clean, that's a good housing for them, and they can still get assistance in order to do this. So under this budget proposal, there would be $3.4 billion going to that program, which is actually a substantial increase increase from previous years. There's also approximately $1 billion being allocated to the Violence Against Women Act, as well as over $1 billion, approximately 1.6 to be exact, being allocated to counterterrorism efforts. Another $1.3 billion is being allocated to police forces across the country, specifically body camera support, and $1 billion is being allocated to immigration efforts. And lastly, there is over $40 billion being allocated to health-related efforts as well, including, but not limited to, efforts revolving veteran affairs, as well as research for various diseases, including Alzheimer's. Now, this is, of course, a very oversimplified explanation of what is included in this proposal. I mean, it's $6 trillion, it is very substantial, but looking at the proposal, I would say that the overarching theme of the proposal is the American Families Plan, the American Jobs Plan, clean energy. That is the main key focuses of this, which in and of itself is a lot of different focuses. So now that we know what is included in this proposal, let's talk about what is not included in this proposal. Because despite the fact that this budget proposal has a valuation of $6 billion, doesn't mean that it includes everything. In fact, there are a lot of campaign promises that were simply left out of this proposal altogether. Number one is healthcare. Now, healthcare was addressed in this bill. We talked about it earlier. There was roughly $40 billion being allocated to healthcare efforts, but that is really kind of pre-existing healthcare efforts, doing things like research, doing things like funding the CDC, helping veteran affairs, providing resources that already exist, not necessarily improving resources or creating new resources. Now, over the course of President Joe Biden's campaign and his presidency thus far, there has been discussions about making healthcare more affordable, of expanding the Affordable Care Act, of lowering the cost of prescriptions, of making healthcare more accessible. But this really wasn't addressed in the budget proposal. It was discussed. It's been something that has been continuously discussed by President Joe Biden, but there was no real numbers put to what these discussions are. I think that the focus is going to be recovering from the pandemic and improving the economy, and that really comes with providing resources to families and also creating jobs and improving jobs. And so that is definitely, in my opinion, indicative of where the focus is right now, and it certainly doesn't seem like healthcare is where the focus is, at least for the time being. In addition to healthcare, student loan forgiveness is something that was completely left out. Now, this came to no surprise to anybody. It was announced a couple of weeks ago that student loan forgiveness would not be in the budget, but this is still something that was a campaign promise by President Joe Biden. Now, unlike a lot of Democrats out there, President Joe Biden has been very adamant on not giving 100% student loan forgiveness. He has never said that he would do that. In fact, he has expressed the exact opposite, that he is not willing to do this. Instead, the number that has been thrown around over the last year or so has been $10,000 in student loan forgiveness, or up to $10,000. It was something that many people were expecting would happen sooner than later, and it looks as though that simply will not be the case. Now, it is important to note that just because of the fact that it isn't included in the 2022 fiscal budget proposal does not mean that it won't happen. There has been a lot of discussion recently on whether or not this is something that President Joe Biden can pursue through the process of executive action, and can he sign an executive order forgiving student loans up to a certain amount. As of right now, there is currently an investigation by both the Department of Justice as well as the Department of Education to determine whether or not President Joe Biden can sign an executive order to forgive student loan forgiveness. And ultimately, as of right now, it looks as though this will be a decision that will be based on the Department of Education, and it will be up to them about whether or not they want to allow President Joe Biden to sign an executive order for this type of thing. As we stand here today at the end of May of 2021, we don't know if this is something that he will do. We don't even know if this is something he can legally do, but it is something that we probably will learn more about over the summer. But what we do know as of right now is the fact that this is not included in the 2022 fiscal budget proposal, and that was something that a lot of people found disappointing. Now, ultimately, I know that this just barely scrapes the surface of what is actually included in this budget proposal. I tried to narrow it down to kind of the most important topics that I felt like you guys would be interested in, and as a result, I am simply not doing this budget enough justice. But I do think that there are some key themes that are focused on more than others in this budget proposal, including clean energy. So not only the incentive to companies to participate in the clean energy effort more, but also making the United States more competitive with clean energy, and also making clean energy more accessible as well. Number two is family resources. So things like education, housing, jobs, things like that. And number 3 is infrastructure and transportation. Now, I will include some resources down in the description below if you guys are interested in learning about this budget proposal in a bit more depth. But like always, you guys, if you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.